Welcome back to TIDES, where we explore the human side of transformation in an AI shaped world. I'm your host, Shveta Malhan, and today we are getting real. Let's face it, HR is under immense pressure to lead and influence digital transformation. But despite the dashboards, copilots, and AI test cases, what's the impact? Often underwhelming. And why? Because transformation is really about tech alone. It's about trust, timing, and trade offs. And today I'm joined by someone who's been in the thick of it, scaling HR systems, rolling out platforms, and navigating the politics, pitfalls, and people dynamics that make or break transformation. Alexandra Keels, or just Keels, senior HR leader who worked across growth phase tech and global orgs. She's led talent, L&D, ops, and talent acquisition, and she's one of the sharpest systems thinkers I know. Heels, welcome to Tides.
Thank you so much for the invitation to join and chat with you today. I really appreciate it.
I'm so excited that we are having this conversation, Keels, because I really want to pick your brain and we're going to do this episode slightly differently where I will post scenarios and we will go into problem solving together. So maybe let's get started by some warm up questions that I have. In fact, I have one. So I want to share with you a couple of truths and a myth about digital transformation since we are unpacking digital transformation in HR. And I'd love for you to tell me which one doesn't belong. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Let's go.
Okay, so the first statement is that most HR transformations are actually modernization projects in disguise. Truth or myth?
Say that's a truth. I think most HR transformations are modernization projects. I'd say truth.
Governance and operating model changes lag tooling by approximately 6 to 12 months. And the last one, buying the right platform will drive adoption.
So, three is what I would call out the myth. And I think it's probably an expensive one that often we in HR fall for, transparently. Yeah.
That is so true. And I agree with your take on this because yes, we would want to see transformations as not modernization, but where we are at today, I think the incremental improvements that we are seeing lean us towards more of a modernization take than transformation. Governance definitely lagging. Uh, and also buying the right platform, just throwing a tool in the mix doesn't mean that people are going to buy it and adopt it.
Absolutely. I mean, the platform doesn't drive adoption. People do, process does, clear value propositions do. So I think you can have the most intuitive AI, like user friendly system in the world. But if managers or employees don't understand why they should use it, if it's not going to actually solve a tactical, real pain point they have, or like it adds work instead of reducing it, they're going to find workaround.
Absolutely. So let's use that as a jumping off point for us exploring some scenarios in HR when it comes to digital transformations. We've tested and tried AI. We are on this digital transformation journey, but at the same time, the new stats and data is telling us that the ROI around those digital transformation initiatives isn't that great. So something's definitely coming in the way of organizations truly reaping the benefit of digital transformation. So maybe I'll present a scenario and you help me understand this particular organizational context, what is going wrong and how would you recommend solving this situation differently from your perspective and lived experience? And again, there's no one playbook.
There are so many circumstances based off of the organization size, resources. I will give you my ideal answers, but also with the caveat that there are many things that could impact the reality of what I would love to do in that situation if given the chance, for sure.
Absolutely. So let's use the first example scenario as an organization trying to embark on becoming a skill-based organization. So they're bought into the concept that they have to become a skill-based organization. They've started their test cases and pilots and whatnot. But as this organization is going through becoming a skills based, skills first HR organization, what they've unpacked is that the data lives across many different systems. Managers are not trusting the skills that are inferred from the system. Employees aren't tagging themselves in the system. And the HR team who's embarking on this journey is realizing that they have only 30% profile completion, and the time to staff is creeping past 60 days. What I mean by that is that talent discovery still seems to be an issue because the system is going to work only if the system has the data and the right matching is happening. So, in this case, in this scenario for this organization, what would be your first move to help this organization get unstuck from this situation of low adoption and the friction in the experience?
Yeah. Um, the first thing that kind of just repeats in my head, and I cringe because I really do hate repeating my mother, but I keep thinking like you can have anything you want, you can't have everything you want. So it almost feels in that scenario we're perhaps solving the wrong problem first. Like if we're looking over data integration, but we should be solving for adoption. So I start with what's going right, look at the 30% who are completing the profiles. What's working for them? Where's our low hanging fruits of when? And then my first move, I would look at a pilot with those three highest performing teams and then go get their managers bought in, make the profile completion part of their goals for the quarter. So they're directly tied to the business impact. And then show that immediate value. So you get that faster internal mobility, you get better project matching. And if we can prove the ROI on a small scale before we go and boil the ocean, we'll be able to embed that trust and move it to a more scalable place.
Amazing. I love that approach. And I will also add that I think what you were also alluding to was understanding from the group of users who actually have profiles created
Mhm.
in the system, what worked for them. And also expanding your listening to people, like pick and choose people in the pool of users who are resisting profile creation, what's coming in the way, so that we
Yes.
have a holistic approach from different stakeholders lens around what's working, what's not working, and reducing the scope of the implementation to a small pilot and growing from there versus just using, throw a tool in and expecting people to buy into it.
Yeah, it's a lot. And depending on the size of the organization, you're setting yourself up for failure before you even get out of the gate. So by getting really concrete on what you're trying to solve and the why, I think it allows you to have those clear paths. And then when you understand, to your point, the resistance, like that's fair, address that head on. So that way you're using the system, the tool to solve the problems.
Absolutely. So let me throw a curveball here now into this conversation. So if it's a skills based platform, that means it's a talent marketplace that this organization was trying to build. And now the CFO wants to see ROI in 2 quarters, and you know where the adoption for this organization is. What would be your first action?
So I would lean into TA to help be my skills validators. They are my first line on understanding the market. They are front line working with the managers, the teams themselves. Maybe you gamify a completion board with like a leaderboard, track. And I think for a metric, I would go internal. So I would look at that time to fill for internal roles and look at that reduction as my first bid. And then I think if we could find like that artifact, that monthly dashboard that shows that we are having that cost per hire time save for those internal, like that I think speaks to what finance would be trying to understand because it goes directly to the numbers that impact their bottom line on a regular
Mhm.
basis. And then, 2 quarters for internal moves, I do think that would give us the time to show those like green shoots of success for that ROI.
I think, and also what I've realized sometimes is that as we are speaking to the executives outside of HR, linking what we are trying to solve to a business problem also gets more traction and more buy-in and more support. Like in this case, if we are solving for internal mobility, time to fill, just spinning that narrative through a business lens might also help get the CEOs buy-in. Like instead of us using HR specific language, if we use language of, hey, you were trying to assemble a pitch team and it was taking you 4 weeks to find the right talent in the organization. And we've reduced that hunting and gathering of talent from 6 weeks to like 3, 4 days. And of course, there in the financial impact, that might resonate more with the CFO than us using the traditional HR speak. What do you think?
In my experience, that has been what resonates the most because it's easy for us to live in our silos. It's easy for us to kind of like live in our jargon, our kind of understanding. Talent strategy is intuitive to a lot of HR leaders on a certain bid. So, our responsibility, I think, as leaders and partners in the business is to translate our practice and our strategy and our work into the business vernacular, into the business goals. If I That's why I'm there. So the CFO is as much my partner as the information officer, my CEO. We are all here to solve the same problems and we approach it from different avenues, but they do intersect together. So the talent strategy and what I am supporting and driving home is designed to enable the business. And it's on me to paint that picture, to tell that business story and how the talent strategy directly impacts their bottom line because it is their time and their day. We're all in it together. So I agree. I think our narrative, our business case should directly link to the same business cases and the same pain points that the business is going through on a regular business.
Amazing. And before we jump into the next scenario, Keels, I'm really curious to know your perspective also on, because what you said, I 100% agree. But where I'm trying to understand and go from here and understand is how ready are HR professionals to actually go on that journey and speak the business speak? And if they aren't, how do they bridge that gap? What would your advice be for especially early career HR professionals who haven't acquired that much experience yet?
Honestly, I think there's so much to be done in just listening to your business stakeholders. So that any professional, anytime that you are joining the business, anytime that you are trying to understand what it is you're doing, as much as you are talking to your talent stakeholders on a regular basis, you should
Hmm.
also be talking to your business stakeholders and your partners. In some way, they are our customers. So if you think about anything that we do in a day to day business, it's for naught if it doesn't translate to what they deal with and if it's not solving their pain points. So I would advise any young professional early in their career, especially as they're getting established in an organization, find those key stakeholders in other areas of the business. Know someone in finance, know someone in legal, know someone in IT, know someone in sales, know someone in product, know someone in marketing. Because the more that you understand what it is those teams are doing on a day to day basis, you'll be able to map your talent strategy and your programming and your orientation and your onboarding and your hiring and all of that really juicy work that we love. We'll be able to
Hmm.
customize it for the right user groups once we understand what it is that they're doing on the day to day basis. But if it doesn't translate to what they experience, they're not going to use it.
Awesome. So, moving to the next scenario. So, here's an organization that has started many AI pilots but it's not seeing payoffs. So this organization has AI to do job description rewriting. They're using AI for talent acquisition and sourcing and some pockets of their TA process. They have help desk Copilot. They built a chatbot for L&D. So they're all over the place. We have many initiatives going on. There's no single owner. And then, of course, the security is slowing things down. So for this organization, what would you suggest to them so that they can bring alignment?
I would slow down to speed up. I mean, each pilot, you need a clear owner, you need a defined success metric. I we'll be repeating this likely throughout this entire conversation. But why? Like, what is the problem that it's solving? What is the business case that it is immediately tying to, either revenue or cost savings? So I would find what's working. Again, like which three, I like either the rule of three or five. Three is simple. So keep the top three that have the clearest path for an ROI. I think from what you listed, I like JD writing for faster hiring, sourcing, help desk for ticket resolution. And then everything else, just pause until you understand and we can prove, like, show that they work, show that we have that validation, and then get those dedicated owners who reports on the progress weekly. Yeah, don't just test to see what happens and then kind of like figure it out, but understand what success should look like up front so you know what you're working to.
That's a really solid piece of advice. And how important in this kind of a scenario, because many companies have jumped straight in terms of experimenting with AI in pockets of their organization. And I wouldn't say that's a wrong approach, especially since we have such a new technology. But now in 2 years, to your point, we've learned our lessons and we have collected enough information to know what's working, what's not working, which one of those initiatives were successful. Having said that, in this situation, how important would you say it is for an HR leadership team to come together and start thinking about what's the AI strategy for their function?
I mean, right away. I think we should all, as talent practitioners, understand, at least in our immediate day to day, how it's going to intertwine and when we're going to come up against it. Some industries have more time than others. Like AI is not going to come over into banking immediately. Like there's some regulations like in pharma and healthcare, like there are certain organizations that it's not going to be knocking down your door today, but it is coming. So you'll want to be reaching out to the organizations who are learning, having these hard lessons, understanding what they're doing so you can get ahead of it. And for
Mhm.
those that are in the organizations that are going full throttle, we need to have a strong point of view because how technology and people intersect is really a key part of a lot of what we do today in talent and HR. I mean, I would have never thought of myself as a systems person, but at this point in life, as we have moved to distributed teams and global organizations, systems are how you deliver experience.
Mhm.
Systems are how we connect to the business. So, to be an effective leader, this point in our evolution, you do need to have a point of view about it. And it doesn't have to be, a fully formed one. It's evolving. So, strong opinions loosely held, but have an opinion, lead it, don't let it lead you.
Yeah, very, very good point, Keels. I'd also like you to zoom into helping us understand what does systems thinking mean in this context and why is it important for us to adopt that mindset?
I think it's naive to think that we can work in silos
Hmm.
and everything is somewhat interconnected and they're knock on impacts, whether we see them or feel them immediately. And, I think there needs to be a holistic view in how we approach our talent strategy, our people strategy in the midst of business, IT, legal, governance. It all intertwines because it's an ecosystem in which we're creating. Like we're building, in essence, a hive mind when we create a business. Something over here is going to impact over here. It's a very techy analogy, but for engineers who code on a monolith, it doesn't scale.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you work on a monolith and everything's flat, it breaks if you do something over here because everything is so independent. So, you want to create that robust, like, infrastructure that people and processes and teams are connected at the right avenues. So, systems thinking and a systems thinking approach I believe is helpful in these situations because it allows us to flex up and look at the 3,000-foot view. Like, where is it that we're going? Like, why are we here? What are we trying to solve for?
Yeah.
And then you go down into like the layers of how that's being solved and what's important at each layer.
Hmm.
Because what is relevant at this layer of execution might not necessarily be as relevant here, but they are connected. And if you don't understand how they're connected, you're going to spend time repairing it down the line. So I think that's where the power of systems thinking comes from when we approach talent strategy. Nothing exists in a silo. Like it's cheesy, it's a little altruistic, but like we're in a community, like everyone, like we're all addressing kind of similar needs. So how they interconnect, the implications of them are important for survival. And like I have an altruistic, very like human centric view about it, but pragmatically, it's also true, and it's how things continue to find repeatable success. So I think that's why it's so important at this time and juncture as we are evolving as a society and everything is becoming more integrated. You just kind of like look at I don't know many organizations that use waterfall project management anymore because
Yeah.
things just move too fast. Like agile is the name of the game, but for agile to work, you do have to understand how it all interplays.
Absolutely. I love that systems thinking perspective in our context and the change that we are going through as well. Because the way you explained it and how I understand it is, if we take example of AI integration into work ecosystem, it is going to fundamentally shift and change how we do our jobs. And if the nature of work is going to shift, then everything that we have around the human who's working to support and enable their performance will also change. If today a copywriter in a marketing team, and tomorrow my job is 10% copywriting because machine is doing most of it, and I have 80%, 90% other pieces of work that has come into my plate to be able to be a valued citizen of an organization. Then how my performance is managed will be impacted, how I will consume learning and development will be impacted, how my career pathing in the organization will change. So that's how I'm kind of understanding the
Yeah,
importance
the
of.
skills required from you are
Yeah,
different, you know?
yeah,
I think it's naive to think that we are going to replace people. I think we'll have some hard lessons, but work is being augmented. The skills required are changing. It is a different approach, it's a different layer of critical thought. So I think the more we train ourselves in that holistic approach to problem solving and systems thinking, the better suited we are to move in an evolving ecosystem and society and workplace because it's not happening again in a silo. It's happening across the board.
yeah, yeah. And it brings us back to our AI strategy for HR because if we apply the systems thinking hat as HR leadership team, then we can go back to understanding how is AI impacting the world of work in the business first, and then start coming back from there to say, how does HR create value in this changing
Mhm.
landscape? What should our game plan be so that we design our HR team for the future success of the organization? So I'm just connecting back the dots of our conversation around why system thinking is such an important key ingredient in helping HR shape itself as a capability for the future.
I think so. I think it allows us to continuously drive the why. Like, why here? You know, like, what is the value that Shveta and your team bring to an organization if certain things can be handled by ChatGPT? Well, it is your style, it is your humanistic approach, it is your understanding of the business, it is your ability to use ChatGPT to enhance your efficiencies, enable managers, free up that time. I think the question that often comes to is like, okay, well then when that time is free, what does it get redistributed to? And then that's where some of our questions in like measuring productivity and outcomes, and those are some of the gray areas. But it's a fun time and fun problems to solve. in this wild world. So I think that is why it's so important in this approach. And as we're going through these evolving, and it helps us come back to the why.
Absolutely. Awesome. Moving to our next scenario. So here's this organization that is experiencing a talent acquisition automation backlash. So they've automated parts of their recruitment funnel. The recruiter's capacity is up, but the candidate NPS net promoter score is down, and the business isn't seeing quality of hire, an improved quality of hire. And they have a hiring season that's hitting in 6 weeks. And they're also noticing that the Glassdoor reviews are getting dicey. So, in this situation for this organization, what would you recommend that will help them address the backlash that they are experiencing without slowing down the process of augmenting their talent acquisition practice?
I mean, it's almost like a beautiful segue because it's the efficiency versus experience. Like the automation is working. That's chef's kiss. Fantastic. I would then we're not correctly reinvesting our recruiter time and our TA time. And so I think that's where it matters the most. I wouldn't necessarily roll back anything. I would have our recruiters redirect to that high touch candidate experience, personalized follow ups, better interview prep, like really have them there in those final stages and those key decision making points, of course, for the manager and the candidates. And then, and the thing that kind of keep that I think about is like if your quality of hire isn't improving, that's really where I would want to dig in. I mean, we're either measuring the wrong things or we don't know what good looks like anymore, and the business has evolved and hiring hasn't matched it at the same point. So that's where I would want to audit like what it is we're actually assessing versus, predictors. So yeah, I think the automation is fantastic. I wouldn't touch it. I would love it, but I would really put the people kind of back into those key moments and inflection points, then really I would look at the metric for that like 90-day performance. Like, and then how does that correlate to the interview skills? So if there's no correlation to like the performance and the interview skills, I think the assessment is probably broken, not necessarily the process. And that's where I would want to spend a little bit of time and rigor, so that I would want to really drive to both the quality and kind of understand why, but keep using the tools and the systems and the automation to enable the time to ask ourselves why. That's a luxury.
Yeah. This is a great point because what you're highlighting is also the importance of us as we go through these initiatives of test and try and augment. There's a component of collecting the right data so that it informs our next pivot or a shift in our approach. The more data we have, the more we can analyze it, and the more informed decisions can we make around what should we be course correcting, where and when.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So our fourth scenario is about HRIS migration. So I think many companies are still on the journey of HRIS integration, migration, and whatnot, which is quite surprising. But at the same time, not that surprising because HR is not a function in an organization that has had many lived experiences of integrating newer technologies very often and going on the digital transformation journey. So here's this organization that is trying to replace, replatform its HRIS. And you can imagine that when we go through any technical integration, a lot of time, energy, and capacity of people who are in that function or capability is dedicated towards that implementation. So in this team, it's sucking up to 80% of HR time. And HR business partners especially feel like they are like the ticket router. And the CEO, she doesn't care about the milestone decks. She wants to hear the value stories. How do you shift the operating model? How would you recommend that this organization shifts its operating model during this chaos?
I would try my hardest to realign the project outcomes to the business outcomes and go again to the why. You just said that the CEO is driven by the stories, the outcomes. So the work that I'm doing needs to translate to that individual so they understand how those updates are landing on a regular basis. So I would look at those milestones and how they are delivered and the goals and, why is the integration there to begin with? Do we need better data integrity? Does it give us better governance? Does it allow us more insights? Are we why? And then how is it being mapped to the same goals of the business and continue to enable? So I would identify what that story is and where those milestones are and really ensure that the work streams tie back to those tangible goals and the business and those outcomes. And I would pull my HRBPs out of ticket routing. Like, that's just
Mm.
not where they should be, in my humble opinion. I would have them refocus their energy back into the strategic work. This is where temps are amazing. This is where you get a project coordinator. This is where you have like really specific goals and you get people there for the very clear migration work, and then you make sure that the business is able to be continued and enabled. So that, yeah, that's where I would start with that because bless those HRBP's hearts. And I think that's one of the classic stories. Like our HR teams get stuck into just the mass admin work and they can't be there to be the strategic partner.
Yeah, yeah. And also sometimes HR business partners, because they're front ending the client experience for the HR team, might feel like it's their responsibility to go
Yeah.
across the full life cycle of an initiative and not depend on the other experts or capabilities available in the organization. So there's an opportunity for HR team also to define roles and responsibilities and learn how to kind of pass the baton when it needs.
Yeah, understand where they can be the advisors, give that input, like they are subject matter experts, and then have the other areas of the business work with them so they can deliver where they have the most impact, you know?
Yeah,
And I think sometimes it's even reminding people of that because we all want to help, we want to be across everything. But again, you can have anything you want, not everything you want. Like your time and energy is just as valuable. Where can you deliver the most impact in your career and your time? Certainly not ticket
absolutely.
routing. Certainly not ticket routing.
Absolutely. All right, our next scenario is about Copilot implementation in an organization. This organization has launched Copilot for managers, but the usage is 15%. Managers are worried it will give the wrong answers, so the trust is really low. In this kind of a scenario, which I think is not an unusual scenario given where we are at with AI implementation in organizations, people have fear, there's mistrust, there's the conversation around AI hallucinations and whatnot. How do you help this organization build confidence and usage with AI?
I mean, it sounds like a classic change management. I would I would find my champions, as a cutter. Like I would go back to like who's already there, who's using it, who's comfortable with it, who are my early adopters, and document their wins. Like really find ways to kind of take their experience and help evangelize the value add of the tool and the offering. And then, I mean, trust is something I think you just have to address head on. No manager should feel like they're not being set up for success or they're flying blind. So I think it's really being very clear to the value add and the why and showing kind of like how the pudding's made, so to speak. Like this is what is going into it. This is where we're getting the information and this is how it supports you. So I think it's being very clear for this is how it serves, and then this is still where you would be involved in it, like a playbook. Like this is how you as a manager use this to enable it. Like this is how it supports your decision making. It does not make the decision for you. This is how you quickly bring the data to support your employee. It does not support the employee for you. So I think that is really where I would spend some time and then, yeah, build up that kind of base and then let the go out to the masses.
Awesome. All right. So, as we are approaching the wrap up segment of our episode today, I would like us to connect the dots for our audience. So we talked about the importance of understanding the why, aligning all our stakeholders, having enough probes in our ecosystem so that we can collect data and understand what's working, and of course double down on change management strategies and tactics. So if we have to come up with a 30, 60, 90 for an organization, an HR organization that's embarking on digital transformation journey, what would your recommendation for a 30, 60, 90 be for this organization that is early stages of digital transformation, doesn't have too much experience leading digital transformation? How should they get started?
Yeah. So first 30 days, set the baseline, like this is really where you're going to stabilize, like align what the outcomes are. It's kind of taking that systems thinking, like getting a whole macro view of what you have. By the
Mhm.
end of the 30 days, I would want a really like an honest to goodness single truth source of truth of, current state of projects, identify like what's working, like what do we want to keep, what goes, like what are we just like not even relevant anymore. Like that's like a legacy process, but can't even say why we do it. And then like what needs to be fixed first. Like where are we going to solve problems? And then I think the next 60 days really thinking about the outcomes. It's about proving and scaling. So really thinking about go back to my rule of 3 or 5, like three validated wins, like start small, like get like what that looks like, and then think about those value cases. Like those are going to be your talking points, your story. That's how you'll start to get the evangelization, the buy-in, and you'll build upon that. And I think making sure in that 60 days, like those value adds are directly tied to the business outcomes. You know who your audience is, like who are you speaking to? Is your audience your CFO? Is it your CISO? Is it your CEO? Is it your CHRO who has to go and talk to them? Like who is this being presented to? And then those 90 days, it's kind of thinking about the systematic like value delivery. Like, how can we create repeatable success based off of our learnings? And then understand where we need to be flexible for evolution because we're never going to stop changing. Like, it will change. Like, the minute that you have a process in place, the business has thrown it out the window because something else is coming down the line. So, how do you create a nimble infrastructure that can be adaptive to an evolving business, but still kind of scale? So, you have to have structured freedom in whatever it is that you're rolling out. And I think those 90 days are kind of like putting the pins in what that looks like.
Beautifully said. All right. So you spoke about speaking to different stakeholders, and I'm really curious, how would a CHRO of the team speak to the three stakeholders who typically shape transformation efforts in an organization: the CFO, the CIO or a CTO, and the operations leader?
It's almost like we're so intertwined. Like my technology, HR technology, it's not a cost center line item as simple as that. It is one of the quickest ways to deliver repeatable success for your business. So, I don't want to waste money, dear buddy. Like we're aligned with that, but your investment in me should be delivering you a strong ROI. So tell me where that ROI is that you care about. And the talent strategy, the HR tech strategy that I deliver is going to be aligned to that. With a CISO or a CIO, like governance all the way. We're on the same team. Like I'm going to absolutely follow your governance and your framework and your policies. This partnership is me defining like the requirements and what we're doing and an architecture that delivers for the whole infrastructure of the business. And I think IT and HR get that because we have all been on the end of unhappy users for whatever we're dealing with. So I think that is the beauty of working with a strong tech partner in this. And then for ops, you're again, how you set up the efficiencies in the business, HR should mirror. Like the rhythm of business and that calendar directly ties into the rhythm of talent's calendar. Like how you were thinking about the evolving infrastructure, how you're thinking about your business processes, that's exactly what we need to be working on as we enable our managers to meet those goals for you. So they are absolutely intertwined. So your operational excellence, like that is HR transformation. I think the ops leader and the CHRO probably are going to become more intertwined as we continue to evolve as companies grow. So that's how I would work with those three buddies of mine.
Awesome. Well, today we saw how digital transformation fails quietly, not because the tech is broken, but because no one owns the friction. Keels, thank you so much for showing us what it takes to cut through and deliver. I learned a lot of new things in our conversation with you today.
Shveta, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat and to go on the journey.
Absolutely. And to our audience, if you're listening and you've got your own transformation or no moments, please do drop it in the comments and we would love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe and share the Tides episodes in your network. And we'll see you next week on Tides.